On the night of October 22nd, 2018, a 21-year-old college student was walking back to her dorm after an evening class. She was talking to her mother on the phone, laughing about school and making plans for the week ahead. Then, without warning, her mother heard her scream. "No, no, no!" The phone hit the ground. Then there was silence. That student was Lauren McCluskey. For years, people have described Lauren's death as another tragic campus murder. They focused on the man who pulled the trigger, his criminal past, and the terrifying moments that ended a young woman's life. But that's not the question that continues to haunt investigators, journalists, and Lauren's own family. The real question is this: could Lauren McCluskey have been saved? Because unlike many victims, Lauren didn't disappear without warning. She didn't suffer in silence. She didn't hide what was happening. She reported the stalking. She reported the threats. She reported the blackmail. She identified the man she believed was behind it. She contacted campus police more than once. She spoke with dispatchers. She visited the police department in person. Her mother called, begging officers to help protect her daughter. Friends raised concerns. Every warning sign was there, documented days before the murder. Yet nothing stopped the man who was getting closer to her every day. As investigators later reconstructed the timeline, an unsettling pattern began to emerge. Again and again, there were moments when someone could have acted differently. A report could have been investigated sooner. A criminal history could have been checked more carefully. A warning could have been taken more seriously. A phone call could have received a stronger response. None of those moments guaranteed that Lauren would survive. But together, they raise one of the most disturbing questions in modern true crime. How many chances were there to prevent this murder? This isn't simply the story of a dangerous predator. It's the story of a system that was repeatedly warned that someone was in danger. In the years that followed, multiple investigations examined what happened before Lauren was killed. Officials reviewed police records, emergency calls, emails, surveillance footage, and internal decisions. The findings would eventually force a public reckoning, leading to lawsuits, disciplinary actions, policy changes, and an extraordinary admission from the University of Utah itself. Tonight, we're not retracing the murder minute by minute. Instead, we're retracing every warning that came before it, every phone call, every report, every missed opportunity. Because by the end of this case, you'll have to decide for yourself whether Lauren McCluskey was the victim of one violent man, or whether she was also failed by the very people she trusted to protect her. Lauren McCluskey wasn't the kind of person who ignored danger. She was a nationally ranked track and field athlete, an honours student studying communications, and someone who had spent most of her life setting goals and finding ways to achieve them. Friends described her as disciplined, thoughtful, and remarkably independent. She wasn't reckless, and she wasn't easily manipulated. That makes what happened over the following weeks even more unsettling. It began in early September 2018, when Lauren met a man named Shah Fields while visiting a local bar. He was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in her. They exchanged phone numbers and quickly began dating. To Lauren's friends, he appeared almost too perfect. He brought flowers. He introduced himself politely to everyone around her. He acted protective and affectionate. At first glance, there seemed to be nothing unusual about him. But the relationship changed with surprising speed. The constant phone calls started first. If Lauren didn't answer immediately, he demanded to know where she was. If she spent time with friends, he wanted to know who she was with. What initially looked like concern slowly became control. Then his behaviour became more disturbing. He insisted she dress more conservatively because he believed other men were looking at her. He became increasingly possessive and unpredictable. According to friends, he even sprayed pepper spray in Lauren's face during one incident because he claimed he was teaching her how to protect herself. The warning signs were becoming impossible to ignore. Lauren's closest friends noticed she was changing. She seemed anxious. She became withdrawn. The confident athlete they knew suddenly appeared constantly worried about upsetting her boyfriend. One friend, Diamond Jackson, was so concerned that she alerted university housing staff about his behaviour. Then Lauren made a discovery that changed everything. She found identification documents belonging to the man she thought she knew. His name wasn't Shah Fields. His real name was Melvin Rowland. He wasn't 28 years old, as he had claimed. He was 37. And when Lauren searched his real name, she uncovered something even more alarming. Melvin Rowland was a registered sex offender. Years earlier, he had been convicted in a case involving the attempted sexual exploitation of a 17-year-old girl. Court records also showed repeated violations of his parole after his release from prison. He had spent years moving in and out of custody, repeatedly failing to follow the conditions imposed on him. Lauren immediately understood that almost everything he had told her had been a lie. She returned home to her parents for a few days, overwhelmed by what she had learned. She told her mother everything. She said she wanted the relationship to end and had no intention of staying with him. But there was one problem. Melvin still had her car. Lauren needed to get it back before she could completely cut ties with him. Recognizing the potential danger, her mother called the University of Utah Police Department before the meeting. She explained that her daughter had unknowingly dated a registered sex offender who had lied about his identity. She specifically asked whether an officer could help ensure Lauren's safety while recovering the vehicle. Campus police agreed to assist. An officer offered to stand by while Melvin returned the car. The exchange ended peacefully. For a brief moment, Lauren believed the worst was finally behind her. She had uncovered the truth. She had ended the relationship. She had involved the police. She had taken every reasonable precaution. Most people would assume the danger was over. In reality, it was only beginning. Within days, Lauren's phone began filling with messages from unfamiliar numbers. Some claimed Melvin had been killed in a car crash and invited her to attend his funeral. Others insisted he was still alive but badly injured, and blamed Lauren for what had happened. The messages contradicted each other so completely that they made no sense. To Lauren, they felt less like random harassment and more like an attempt to lure her into a trap. She blocked the numbers. Then she contacted campus police once again. This would not be the last time she asked for help. In fact, over the next several days, Lauren would repeatedly warn authorities that someone was stalking her, threatening her, and escalating the harassment. Each new report painted a clearer picture of a young woman who knew she was in danger. The troubling question is not whether those warnings existed. The troubling question is what happened after she gave them. Lauren's next call for help was even more urgent. The harassment had changed. It was no longer just strange messages from anonymous phone numbers. Someone was trying to extort her. The texts claimed they possessed intimate photos of Lauren and threatened to release them across the University of Utah campus unless she paid thousands of dollars. Almost immediately, Melvin contacted her as well. He claimed that he had received the exact same threats. To someone unfamiliar with manipulation tactics, it might have sounded believable. 2 victims, both being targeted by the same mysterious blackmailer. Lauren wasn't convinced. She believed the person behind the messages either was Melvin or someone working with him. But certainty didn't erase fear. If private photos really existed, her reputation, athletic career, and future could all be destroyed overnight. Afraid of what might happen, Lauren sent $1,000 through Venmo. The demands didn't stop. Another message arrived asking for more money. She sent another $1,000. $2,000 disappeared, yet the threats continued. At this point, Lauren realized she needed more than a phone conversation with dispatchers. She went directly to the University of Utah Police Department. A close friend accompanied her because they believed the situation had become too dangerous to handle alone. Lauren carefully explained everything. The fake identity, the registered sex offender, the stalking, the anonymous phone numbers, the extortion, the money she had already paid. Most importantly, she identified the one person she believed was responsible, Melvin Rowland. To Lauren, the connection seemed obvious. He had lied about his identity. He had become controlling after their breakup. He knew personal details about her life. He had every possible motive. But according to later investigations, the response she received failed to match the seriousness of what she was describing. Instead of immediately treating the situation as a potentially escalating case involving stalking and a convicted sex offender, the reports were not aggressively pursued. The detective assigned to review Lauren's complaint wasn't available that weekend. Rather than assigning another investigator to urgently examine the case, it was left waiting. Lauren was told someone would contact her later. She left the station still frightened. Meanwhile, the person targeting her wasn't waiting at all. The messages kept coming. Each one became more personal, more threatening, more specific. Instead of feeling protected after reporting everything, Lauren felt increasingly isolated. Frustrated by the lack of progress, she tried another approach. Standing just outside the campus police building, she called 911 and reached the Salt Lake City Police Department. She explained that she was being blackmailed. She explained that she had already reported everything to campus police. She explained that she was worried nothing was happening. The dispatcher listened carefully. But because the incidents had occurred on university property, the call was transferred back to campus police. Once again, Lauren found herself back where she had started. 2 agencies, 1 victim, no immediate action. Days earlier, Melvin had admitted aspects of the blackmail scheme to people around him. He even told his supervisor that he had lied to a university student about his identity, that she had discovered the truth, and that he had demanded money after their breakup. His parole officer later testified that if she had learned about those admissions at the time, she would have immediately sought to have Melvin arrested for violating the conditions of his release. But those warnings never reached her. The information stopped before it reached the people who had the legal authority to act. Lauren had no way of knowing any of this. She believed investigators were working behind the scenes. She believed the reports she filed were building toward action. Instead, critical information remained scattered across different offices, different departments, and different people. No one was putting the entire picture together. Then something happened that terrified her even more. Melvin sent a message saying he knew she had contacted the police. Not only that, he appeared to know details that should never have been available to him. Lauren couldn't understand how he had learned so much. Had someone leaked information? Was someone inside the investigation telling him what she was reporting? Or had he found another way to monitor her? The uncertainty was almost as frightening as the threats themselves. Lauren contacted authorities again. She explained that the man stalking her somehow knew about conversations she believed were confidential. She feared there might be someone inside the system helping him. Looking back today, investigators know there was another explanation. Earlier in their relationship, Lauren had logged into her email account on one of Melvin's devices. She later signed out, believing her information was secure, but evidence suggested he still had access to messages, screenshots, and communications connected to the investigation. Without anyone realizing it, the suspect may have been watching the investigation unfold almost in real time. Every report Lauren made, every screenshot she shared, every attempt to seek help, instead of stopping him, those efforts may have revealed exactly how close or how far the authorities were from taking action. And while Lauren continued searching for protection, Melvin was making plans of his own. By the morning of October 22nd, 2018, Lauren McCluskey had done everything society tells victims to do. She had ended the relationship. She had exposed Melvin's false identity. She had reported the stalking. She had reported the blackmail. She had gone to the police station in person. She had called 911. She had asked for protection. She had trusted that someone was working to stop the man who had become obsessed with her. What she didn't know was that Melvin Rowland had already reached his own conclusion. He believed there was only one way to avoid going back to prison. According to later investigations, Melvin knew Lauren had contacted law enforcement. He knew she had shared screenshots of the threatening messages. He knew she was cooperating with police. Every hour that passed increased the risk that he would be arrested. Instead of running, he began preparing for murder. Security footage later showed him arriving near Lauren's residence early that morning. He spent hours around the campus, moving between buildings, waiting for an opportunity. Lauren continued with her normal routine. She attended classes. She met with an academic advisor. She even spoke openly about the harassment she had been experiencing, believing that help was finally on the way. Meanwhile, Melvin continued watching. Late that afternoon, surveillance cameras captured him entering Lauren's residence hall after another student unknowingly allowed him inside. He remained in the building for hours, hiding in plain sight while hundreds of students walked past him. No one realized that a registered sex offender was waiting inside a university residence hall for the woman he had been stalking. That evening, Lauren finished class a little earlier than usual. As she walked back toward her dormitory, she called her mother. Nothing about the conversation suggested it would be their last. They talked about school. They laughed. They discussed ordinary plans. Then, just steps away from the entrance to her residence hall, everything changed. Surveillance footage later revealed Melvin emerging from the darkness behind her. Within seconds, he grabbed Lauren. Her mother heard the struggle through the phone. She heard her daughter scream. Then the line went silent. Campus police immediately began searching for Lauren after the emergency call, believing they were responding to a possible kidnapping. Hours later, officers discovered her inside the back seat of a borrowed car parked near the university. She had been shot multiple times. Despite the rapid arrival of emergency medical personnel, Lauren McCluskey was pronounced dead at the scene. Melvin fled the campus. For several hours, he remained on the run, even meeting another woman he had connected with online before eventually leaving her and disappearing into downtown Salt Lake City. The following day, police tracked him to a church. As officers closed in, Melvin Rowland took his own life. His death ended the criminal investigation against him, but it marked the beginning of a much larger investigation into everyone else. Independent reviews examined every report Lauren had filed, every phone call, every email, every missed opportunity. Investigators concluded that critical warning signs had not been handled with the urgency they deserved. Communication failures, delayed responses, and inadequate information sharing all became part of a growing list of systemic problems. The University of Utah eventually acknowledged that mistakes had been made in the handling of Lauren's case. In 2020, the university reached a $13.5 million settlement with Lauren's family, and publicly admitted that it had failed to respond appropriately to the threats she reported. The settlement also funded major safety reforms and support for the Lauren McCluskey Foundation, which continues to advocate for stronger protections against stalking and dating violence. Lauren's parents chose not to let their daughter's story end with a courtroom settlement. Instead, they turned unimaginable grief into lasting change. Today, universities across the United States study Lauren's case when developing policies for stalking investigations, campus safety, and the protection of students facing intimate partner violence. Her story has become more than a true crime case. It has become a warning, not only about violent offenders, but about what can happen when repeated cries for help are treated as routine paperwork instead of urgent danger. Looking back, one fact remains impossible to ignore. Lauren McCluskey did not fail to ask for help. She asked again, and again, and again. The question that continues to divide investigators, legal experts, and the public is no longer who killed Lauren. That answer is known. The question that remains is far more uncomfortable. How many chances did the system have to save her before it was too late?